All right, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Back to the Blockbuster podcast. My name is Gaius Bowling, and I am still very full from Thanksgiving. I'm sure the co-hosts are too.
We are. We are.
Yes.
I am Owen, back again, full as always. I was just talking to Gaius before this, saying how it's always the leftovers that my parents try and shove down my throat, and not always is it reciprocated. I'm never actually wanting to necessarily have turkey for a third time in a row.
It's also turkey overrated. I know this is a podcast not about food, but turkey overrated. Ham better than turkey.
Honey baked ham, way better.
For the win, if we have to choose. Brittany, I know you're back in the area now, but how was your weekend?
Yes, hello. I'm back in LA, out of St. Louis. I had a very lazy past few days weekend. I watched a lot of stuff, so just was consumed by a lot of movies and television all weekend, which was
Let's
nice.
go.
That's good. We're gonna get into the things that we watched over the weekend. We're gonna get this out of the way because it became a big story today. But Spider-Man No Way Home pre-sale tickets went on sale at midnight. So I guess the 29th today, at last night, this morning. And then everyone complained that they couldn't get online to buy them because the AMC site crashed, Fandango crashed, Regal crashed. I thought it was kind of an over-exaggeration until I went in that AMC app to look at like the 16th, 17th, and like the whole weekend. A lot of their showings are pretty much all sold out already. Across like multiple show times. So I'm thinking like all the things that we are thinking about it probably being one of the biggest movies of the year. It seems like it's going to be. I don't know.
Hopefully we can all see it before we record the podcast.
I know. Yeah, we're gonna have to find a way to get in, slide in, pay someone for their seat.
Yeah, I'm still waiting for a press spot. We'll see. If not, my little brother secured 2 tickets, so we'll
Nice.
figure out. Yeah, but I don't know if it's gonna be like in-game level as far as like the money it's gonna make, but at least opening weekend it's gonna do well. And like someone mentioned today, they were like, well, the poor Matrix opens like a few days after that, and there's like very little buzz surrounding that compared to Spider-Man.
Yeah, I think that the Matrix, is it Resurrections? Is it one of those? Oh gosh, they use Resurrection for any time they're trying to bring to life a dead franchise. But I think that that sequel has been kind of wanted for a long time, that it's not going to get the biggest reception as the Spider-Man, because Spider-Man current, Matrix hasn't been around for a long time, so people might. Also, there hasn't been a lot of advertising for it. I think it's mostly people who know about the movie. They're excited to go and see it. So don't know if it's going to get as big of a buzz as Spider-Man, but I'm excited to see both movies.
Yeah. I mean, if anyone can break the internet as well as Keanu Reeves, right? If he like a close second to Spider-Man.
Yes.
Yeah, I've never seen any of the Matrix movies, but when I saw that trailer, I know. But when I did see that trailer, it was a really good trailer. They really used like a good song for it. It was really an interesting trailer. So
I'll say this, Brittany, you should definitely at least watch the first one.
Yeah,
I want to watch. They're on my list. I want to watch.
The second two are definitely kind of like, all right, they're really pushing the boundaries here.
Yeah.
But I think the first one, just the concept is unbelievable. Crazy story. Keanu in his prime. It's definitely, it's a classic for a reason.
Yeah, I'm not avoiding it. Sci-fi is not my go-to on like a lazy Sunday. So,
Gotcha.
but I will definitely make it a point to watch it before the new one comes out.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to kind of when you see it, because like the first one is like great, and I want you to go into that knowing that the first one's great, and then the other two were just made because that one made money, and then you just gotta accept them for what they are. The second one is like better than the third one at least, but you could tell they were motivated by money and more so than like, oh, we have an idea, we want to continue. But you should definitely see the first one. Like the first one is a classic of the genre. So.
Just in terms of story in general. It kind of takes that whole, we're living in a simulation. That's where it all starts. So I think just for the story alone. I think like you said, yes, the second and the third one kind of take a. Did they really do that?
Yeah, right.
Kind of what in terms of CGI and what they're trying to go after, but in general, definitely first one, highly recommend.
Oh, for sure. And then also just piggybacking off the Spider-Man news so we can get it out of the way. Everyone who loves Tom Holland, apparently he's not going anywhere. The producer in the movie, Amy Pascal, who used to be the head of Sony, mentioned today to Fandango, almost like kind of not flippantly, but like it was just like a big it was big news to just say like, oh yeah, he's not going anywhere. We have like a whole like trilogy plan with him. He's not leaving the MCU. Marvel and we're all going to share him still. It's a pretty good business model and we don't want to mess it up basically. So even though he did that GQ interview where he said he had reservations about playing the character into his 30s, it looks like he's going to be doing that.
Is it going to be Spider-Man? I'm coming home. Spider-Man home from college. Spider-Man.
And your reunion.
Old folks home.
Well, I mean, the cool thing, fun fact though, if he does do 3, he'll be the only actor to play the role like 6 times. So I mean, not more than 6 times, but like across 6 Spider-Man like official like titles. So I mean, clearly they want to keep him around, and I don't think it's just because he's a great Spider-Man. I think they want to keep him in business with Sony because he also is with them on Uncharted. So I think they just kind of want to keep him in the Sony business a little bit. And
I just hope this is something that he wants and not something he's being pressured into.
I kind of feel that too, because like, I don't know if you read the GQ article, the last one he did, but it almost sounded like depressing the way he was talking about like the pressure of doing the role and like doing the movie and like, you know, because he had talked before a long time ago that he would play the role until like no one wanted him anymore. And then he was like, well, now I don't know, maybe I should do something else. So it seems like he's kind of in a interesting spot. I mean, he's 25, so he probably isn't in the spot where he wants to do a bunch of other things. And you know, yeah,
I hope he's given the freedom to really expand. I mean, he did a lot of other movies. He's done Chaos Walking, The Devil Inside, The Devil All the Time, Cherry. So at least they've given him the ability to explore his creative options or other things that he wants to play. So I hopefully he doesn't feel entangled by this by his creativeness. Hopefully he still has the ability to kind of go out and find the pictures that he wants to do and stuff like that. But I think that, I mean, right now I can't imagine the stress that it takes to make a Marvel movie, especially with all those green screens and especially as Spider-Man, you're probably tied up to a rig for 8 hours, 10 hours a day for 3 months shooting these crazy scenes. So it probably takes a lot on him and just takes a lot out of like his body.
And then the freaking secrets. I wouldn't be able to do that either. Like all the months of shooting where you have to keep things a secret, and then you have to wait for it to come out and still keep things a secret. And then it has to kind of be like everyone's asking you like, well, what's happening? What's gonna like? He said he's unsure what answers to give sometimes because he doesn't want to fuck it up.
And keeping those secrets like affects your relationship with your friends, your family. I mean, one of my coworkers got in trouble. My coworker at my old job got in trouble kind of because their husband or wife worked for a different streaming service. Like,
whoa, really?
So they were like, oh, how are you supposed to work in the same house, work from home? It's like, well, what are we supposed to do?
Like in terms of conference calls and hearing
yeah, a lot of like confidentiality agreements and stuff like that in this industry. It's like who is allowed to be in the room and who's not. It's like, well, we all live in Los Angeles. Our apartments and houses are so small.
Yeah.
And if your significant other works for a competitor, it's unfortunate, but what else are you guys going to talk about at the dinner table? I mean,
so did they get divorced?
Yes.
Yeah. It shows work.
Legally they had to.
Yes. I think they aren't together anymore.
It's in their contract.
Well, yeah, and also Tom Holland did not confirm this news himself today. It was just Amy Pascal, and maybe he didn't say anything because he wants to negotiate some more zeros onto that contract for 3 more years. Because like if you're gonna keep me for 3 more years, and that's like 3 more Spider-Man movies. I don't even know if that includes like, do you want to pop up in like another Avengers movie or here and there? Like he can negotiate a really sweet deal if he wants to. If they plan,
he probably will.
So yeah, get that money, Tom Holland.
Yeah.
as far as I guess we can go into like the things that we watched this week. I know some of us watched a lot of things. It was a long holiday weekend, so some of it was very, very good. Some of it was like meh, and but I'll let one of you guys go first, and
I'll go first because I was with my family all week, and usually, I mean, when it's just the family and we kind of are winding down, we usually like to watch a movie at the end of the night. But for some reason, it's weird. We actually didn't watch a whole lot. The one thing we did go and see, my dad and brother are huge fans of Dune, so we actually went and I saw Dune in the theater. So I got to actually see it on the big screen. I had seen it on HBO Max first. Yeah. I will say that it was definitely better in the theater, 100%. It really changes my perception on what I'm actually going to go out and see in the theater, especially since I've now kind of seen one movie in both different types of media, different types of platforms. So it really changes my opinion there. But God, that movie's long. That movie is long. And after seeing it once, and then actually I was sitting next to my girlfriend, and she has not read the books. And she turned to me halfway through and said, "Hey, can you kind of explain to me what's going on?" And I kind of gave her a sad look and said, "Honestly, I cannot. I literally would have to spend at least 40 minutes explaining even the backstory before they
That's
got
when you
there.
would have to pause the movie at home and
exactly
explain it.
Yeah, and then even so, she probably would not understand it. It's such the way that Dune is presented, it even in the book. I mean, I read the book as well, and the way that they Frank Herbert throws you into this world, he basically says, all right, get on board and understand the terminology and these different sort of quote unquote races, different planets, different people, and you got to understand it quick or else you have no idea what's going on. And they kind of do the same thing in the movie. I think that it's really well done. Cinematography is fantastic. My dad and brother loved it. One of the things that was interesting that I heard my dad say was, because he's been a fan ever since the book came out. It's been his favorite sci-fi novel for years and years and years. And he kind of left the theater and he asked the question, I think he was still trying to figure it out himself. He was saying, is that what I pictured when sort of the world that I envisioned when I was picturing the story in my head? And he said, I think it is. I think it actually did have a good representation of what I thought when I was first reading the books. So good to see an actual huge fan of Dune for 30 years, 40 years, to say that the movie did a good job and portray. And actually, I told him that it was just part one, and he called exactly where they were going to cut it off before he even saw it. So I think that the way they did it was definitely good for the fans, but having a second watch for a 2-hour and 50-minute movie is can be exhausting, especially when a lot of it is just kind of ethereal sort of mind processing for the character of Paul Atreides. So definitely a good watch. Much happier that I saw in the theater, but if you've already seen it, maybe hold off a couple months before you see it again.
Well, like somebody,
if that movie is if that movie's 2.5 hours long, or 2 hours and 50 minutes long, I saw House of Gucci over the weekend, and that's 2 hours and 38 minutes.
Yeah.
So, it's like being in a theater for that long, just staring at the screen. I know that COVID made it possible for us to watch movies at home and be able to check our phones and stuff, but that is a long time to be watching a movie, like in general.
Did you do the lay down seats, or were you just sitting up straight up?
Oh yeah, we did the full Dolby Theater.
Yeah.
Had to.
That is a game changer for sure.
Oh yeah. And the movie time was at like 10 o'clock at night. So we left at like 1 in the morning. It was just,
oh my God.
Oh man, I don't think I would have made it through all the Gucci if I saw it that late. Because
I really wanted to see it.
Yeah. I was, I'm kind of curious. Dune is doing well considering it's at home, and it's doing well overseas. It crossed the $100 million mark, which is so weird to celebrate that this year. But I mean, with COVID and everything, you have to celebrate a movie grossing $100 million. I really wonder if it would have came out as planned last year and there was no pandemic, and it was supposed to come out in December, how well it would have done. Like if it would have like actually made more money here, or if it's, cerebral sci-fi movies are hard for most people to get into. And like you said, there's a lot of like just more mind stuff, and like, there is action, but there's not a ton of it. So I kind of wonder how well it would have done in like a healthy, like movie going environment, if it would have done any better than it's doing right now.
Yeah, I think that there's definitely a chance that I think it probably would have done the same. I think that the fact that it is a well-known story. The target audience is for sure people like my dad who grew up with the story. But I mean, the second part is going to be way more action packed. But I think actually the fact that it is one of the only sort of new sci-fi stories that's out there right now, that was kind of happened during the pandemic. People love the sci-fi genre, and so I think anytime a new story, a new world is built, people are interested to go and see it. And I think I think it actually kind of maybe have transcended COVID times. Make the fact that it did make over $100 million. I think that's probably what it would have done.
Yeah.
Maybe a few more ticket sales if COVID hadn't been there. Maybe more people would have been willing to go and watch it, just for something to go and do. But I think that it's probably the way that it's doing is what I would have expected it to do, regardless.
I mean, the original Star Wars when it came out didn't do so well in theaters either.
Yeah, it took a little bit for it to catch on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, cerebral sci-fi, it's hard. It's a hard sell when it's more thought-provoking than anything. And a lot of people thought that book was like unfilmable. I mean, I know they tried in the 80s, and that movie turned into a so bad it's good cult classic. And this one, I mean, people actually like. This is probably the best adaptation of it you're gonna get.
It's good.
Point. I didn't know some people that complained that because it was so long, and they were like, "Wait, this is only half the book." I was like, "Yeah, there's a whole part 2." They're like, got really upset because it was just too long.
But... my complaint about it, Gaius.
Yeah, I know.
Zendaya, or is it Zendaya? I still don't know.
Whatever. Zendaya. You know what's good about part 2 is that she's gonna be in it even more.
So much more. I don't know what it is, man. The second she she doesn't have any speaking parts on screen until the last 20 minutes. The second she opens her mouth, I don't believe you, and I don't believe that you're that character.
Oh, it's funny.
I seriously, I don't know what it is, but I just
Timothy Chalamet was singing her praises, right? He was in an interview talking about the first time we had a scene together, I was just in awe of how good she was. And I'm reading that quote, and in my brain, I was like, if Owen read this right now, he'd probably rip it up.
Oh my god. He must be very easy to impress.
Just so you know, guys, he has this weird I don't like her thing going on, and I don't get it. I don't know if Brittany gets it, but I don't get it. Everyone loves Zendaya except for Owen.
Yep.
I'm convinced.
I think at this point it's actually even more fun to make fun of it in front of Gaius because he gets so upset. But Euphoria is the only thing where I was like, wow, she's really got some acting chops on her. I mean,
I was just about to say I haven't seen Euphoria yet, but I mean I'm wanting to, just because I've heard so much good things about her in it, but I really haven't seen her in that many roles. I don't know why. I just haven't seen her. I haven't seen that many movies she's been in, but I'm anxious to see Euphoria. I'm ready to binge it.
Yeah, she's really good.
I think Euphoria is wild. It's
I didn't think that was an appropriate one to binge while I was home.
No, it's not. No, there's
too
many things going on that you do not want.
Yeah, I waited till I got home for that.
That was one of those shows that for me, it took me a few tries to kind of get through it because it's hard to watch. There's definitely some things where you're watching it and it's I just felt bad about myself, and I just felt bad when I was watching it. I was like, wow, these people are going through some serious shit and they're in high school. Are you serious right now? And just the kind of stuff that they're going through, I obviously know it's dramatized and over the top kind of for a reason, and that's the whole point of the show. But it's just there was a few times I literally was like, I am not watching the next episode because I need to have some enjoyment and happiness in my life, and my happiness in my life right now.
You kind of come out of it thinking my life isn't that bad.
Yeah.
I'm not going. They're going through some crazy stuff at 16, 17 years old. I mean, it's funny because that show got in trouble by the Parent Television Council, who was like, "Oh, young people are watching this," and then HBO tried to be like, "Oh no, it's on cable." Oh no, mostly older people are watching it, and then they would pull their numbers, and then, of course it's their youngest skewing show. As far as ratings, a bunch of young people are watching it. Yeah. So I mean, it is what it is. I mean, I'm not for trying to censor shows like that. But for me, the darker the better. If it's the integrity of the story, then do it. But yeah, it's not for everyone, and definitely not worth watching on Thanksgiving. Your family could walk in. There's some stuff on that that's from episode 1 until it finishes. It's nonstop of like, I can't believe I just saw that.
Yeah.
But yeah, solid show though.
Season 2 coming out.
Yeah, January 9th. So more depressed teens doing bad things coming our way next month.
So I watched the trailer. It's mostly just her singing a song though.
Yeah, so they kind of do these things. I mean, I think you saw it like in season 1 where like she's having her trips, whatever, when she's like high, and she kind of goes into these things where like there's like musical kind of numbers. It sounds weird to describe it that way, but it's kind of like her on her trips, she kind of experiences that stuff. I think that's what the trailer is trying to do. But yeah, it was a little weird. So they started showing flashes of like, what they might be showing in season 2.
Yeah.
I mean, of course, it was only a little over a minute long. I wanted to see more, but I'm sure they'll surprise us with some.
I think it's going to be one of the most streamed season 2s out there. I mean, it's up there with people when it came out. Everyone was talking about it. Kind of the same thing with You. I know we talked about You already, but when season 2 came out for that, everyone flocked to it and immediately started binging it.
Yeah.
So I think that Euphoria is going to have a similar response.
Yeah, and Euphoria had the COVID delay. They were supposed to start shooting, I think, the week everything shut down. They were like getting ready to do like their table reads and stuff. They did like 2 special episodes to kind of like make fans happy for a little bit until they can fully do season 2, but they were ready to go like last year. So I'm sure it's highly anticipated, and like, critics liked it a lot too. It wasn't just viewers. It was kind of well received by a lot of people. So hopefully season 2 lives up to what season 1 did. I think that's.
Are you interested, Brittany, in watching it just because season 2 is coming out? I know you said you have been interested in watching it, but is there a reason you didn't watch it when it first came out?
Yeah, actually, I was waiting for more things to come out on HBO Max for it to be worth getting.
Gotcha.
So I just didn't have HBO before. I have it now mostly to watch Curb Your Enthusiasm.
Nice.
But I will watch. I've been watching a lot of stuff on there lately, so I do want to watch it for sure.
They have a lot of good movies on there that kind of come and go. The weird thing for HBO that I've noticed is that I'll see a movie that's on there that I'm like, oh, I'm definitely going to watch that next time. And then I feel like they kind of take them off randomly. I know they have sort of like that slide on the home screen. It's like, oh, leaving soon, or only got a few weeks left, or whatever it is. But I feel like I always miss the ones like, and sometimes I can't even remember it. Like there'll be movies I think, okay, definitely need to write that down or something and make sure I catch it. And then I'm scrolling through. I'm like, what movie did I want to see? Because I can't find it anymore.
Yeah, I definitely utilize like the list on like Netflix. I'll add things to my like watch list.
Oh, nice.
So I utilize that a lot just so I can remember, because I have such bad ADD. I'll forget what movies I want to watch, especially like old ones that I haven't seen or whatever. So I'll add it to my wish list or watch list so I remember.
Cool.
I don't know if HBO has that.
Yeah, I haven't used that feature yet.
If you're forgetting, that's a good one.
I always wondered, like, what makes you want to keep a streaming service? Would you rather have it for like movies, or are you getting them for TV shows?
It depends on which streaming service. I think certain ones have good shows. I like Hulu because it has stuff like It's Always Sunny and Archer and some of these classic ones that I always just like to kind of throw on, even if I've already seen it already. I also think Hulu has some really good movies. They throw a lot of good classics that I really like, and their like For You page, their For You sort of picks are
I was just about to say that.
Always amazing. Always good.
Hulu does something that I think more streaming services need to do, where they utilize like the time of the month, whether it's Black History Month, Pride Month, Women's History Month, like they utilize the month that it is, and they'll have a whole page dedicated to movies that you can watch that educate yourself or that reflect that time period or whatever. And I think that's really a good idea. And I haven't seen any other streaming services really utilize that.
Yeah, I think Hulu is the only one that I've seen do that. Hulu's definitely my favorite. I consistently see myself going to Hulu first to see if there's anything that I want to watch. I think Netflix has become very convoluted with all the stuff that's on there. I mean, they even added a shuffle button because it's hard for people to pick. Like that just kind of shows how much content they have on there, because they are buying up IPs left and right, and they're trying to buy everything in sight. But I think Hulu's my first pick, and then probably HBO and Netflix are probably tied. HBO is definitely more for movies for me, not as much TV shows, except South Park went to HBO, and I'm a huge South Park fan. Plus, they have their little specials. I mean, they signed that huge deal, so they got a bunch of new content coming out. But I'd say they're probably tied. Maybe Netflix a little bit more based on the shows that are on there, and then definitely Amazon Prime last.
And then Apple Peacock. Poor
But
Peacock.
I don't have Apple yet. I don't have Apple yet, so I'm actually
Amazon
gonna
last.
Well, out of the ones he has, I guess. Yeah, I mean that makes
out of the ones that I have, just because I haven't
Interesting choice, Owen.
I haven't seen we'll talk later, Brittany. I haven't the thing is, like, I don't have any shows on there that I'm consistently going back to.
I've explored those shows the least, I think, out of all the streaming service. I thought it was Apple TV Plus that was the shows I explored the least, but I think I don't really use my Prime a lot for TV shows.
Prime is hard to navigate.
Yeah, it's not as user friendly as the other ones.
The reason it's not user friendly for me, I feel that I'm constantly wondering which ones I have to pay for and which ones are included. Like which ones I have to rent and which ones I don't. And also, I feel like I'm still scrolling and they're still putting Knives Out at the front of my homepage. Like I still struggle to see that they're constantly updating their portfolio. So sometimes I struggle to be like, all right, well, what's really new? I did love the metal. Gosh, what's it called?
Sound of
Metal. Yeah,
that was good.
some really
It was
good ones.
so good. That was one of their
And I
best
guess
movies.
they acquired like Coming to America, and like that wasn't horrible. I guess I watched that. But yeah, I guess out of all of them, I watched Peacock. I have Peacock just because I have to for work, but I barely use it. Like it's probably way at the bottom of the barrel as far as the streaming services are concerned, which is unfortunate because they're trying real hard, man. They're trying real hard to get noticed, and no one's biting at all.
Yeah.
There's some interesting things on Paramount Plus that are coming out that I'm interested to see. I saw a commercial for one the other day. Gosh, I'll have to come back and remember it. But there have been, I think, the last 2 Paramount Plus commercials. I was like, oh, that's interesting. I definitely want to check that out.
Yeah. So as far as other things that we saw, I think Brittany and I saw a couple of similar things.
Yeah, Bruised. I watched Bruised on my flight.
I watched that on Thanksgiving actually with my family. Yeah, I'd like to hear your take on it first, actually, because I had been hearing about the movie a lot last year when they premiered at the Toronto Film Festival, and then Netflix paid like a lot of money to acquire it. So like my expectations were high because Netflix paid all that money to get it like right away. They did it as there wasn't even a full like movie presentation. It was like it was more like a sizzle reel that they put together for it, and Netflix bought it based on that. I also thought it was interesting too, before you get going, that this started as a vehicle for Blake Lively, and it was supposed to be directed by Nick Cassavetes. I didn't realize that until Halle Berry had been doing interviews and talking about it, but she wouldn't say who it was meant for. So I went online. I was like, oh, Blake Lively was supposed to do this, until Halle Berry kind of circled it and then ended up directing it as well.
Yeah. So I was gonna say I listened to an interview with her on Smartless. She was the guest on Smartless, and I listened to that interview after I watched the movie, like immediately after, which I wasn't really planning on doing it that way, but it just so happened to work out that that's the order. And I liked that I did that because her explanation of her process of making that movie really made me have a lot of respect for her. I already have a lot of respect for Halle Berry. We can get into that later, that I did a whole project in like middle school about her, but maybe elementary school. But I have a lot of respect for her with that movie because it took her a lot of time and effort to get that movie going. Took her a long time. They pretty much sold her the movie, and they were like her agents were like, we have this movie for you if you want to do it. if you want to do it, you can find your own director. And so she didn't even have a director to consult with or anything. And she was trying to get this movie going on her own pretty much, and just do it herself. And I think that's admirable.
Yeah, I agree. I think what she did when she realized that there wasn't going to be anyone that could handle it the way that it probably should be handled, she kind of was like, I'm going to step in and do it myself. I think I had higher expectations for it. I did like it. I just didn't love it. And that's because it does kind of fall into a lot of cliches of that kind of movie. But I will say, I don't know if I watched that particular interview, but I did watch a few that she did promoting it. And it was like, not only was it a struggle to get it made, but then she had a whole 2-year training process of like getting into MMA fighting shape, where she would be like believable in that role. And she is 100% believable in that. Like it's a lot of people, I feel like, even though she's an Oscar winner, I don't think a lot of people give her enough credit as far as her ability is concerned. And I don't know if that's because like she doesn't always get certain projects that she should probably get, but like she is, I mean, she's a solid actress. I just don't, I really, even with the Oscar, I don't think she gets the respect that she probably deserves. And
what did she win for again?
For Monsters Ball.
She was the first African American woman to win Best Actress for.
Wow.
And she has talked in the past how she won that, like that there would be a lot of change. There'd be other leading actresses of color who would win, and that she would be getting all these roles. And I think she kind of initially did, like she got James Bond after that, and of course she did Catwoman.
She didn't, like she says in her interview that she thought that the ball would be rolling, like Monsters Ball, but she thought that people were going to be practically begging her after she won that award to be in their movies, and it was crickets. Like she got nothing.
Wow.
And that's so sad. She won Best Actress, and I can think of a lot of actresses that have won that category and that have gone on to do, a million other movies within the next year or two. And
Jennifer
that
Lawrence.
Wasn't the case for her. Nicole Kidman.
Yeah, that's Jennifer Lawrence is a good example. I mean, like even before she won off her first nomination, she kind of like took off after that. And then and Halle Berry had been working in the industry for years before she won her Oscar.
Wow, that's crazy to think about.
But there's there's not a lot of respect on her name, and I think she kind of still feels that way. I felt that way when I was watching her interviews, even though she's very happy about Bruised and she's happy she directed it. Like you can tell that she still kind of feels she never really still hasn't gotten her due really, and she probably deserved it. I mean, and she's proven that she can be in these type of movies, in dramas, she can do comedy, she can do action. She's done everything. She's beautiful.
Yeah.
I know that shouldn't matter, but she's the perfect package for what you want to sell. Like you want her name above the title, you want someone that can do everything, and she kind of, it takes her having to do something like this herself to make this happen for her again. And she's in her 50s in a different part of her career, and she still has to fight for the right roles. That's crazy to me.
Legitimately fight for the role.
She has to fight on screen and off to do it.
So can you guys tell me? Can you guys give me a little backstory on the story? I mean, I've seen very, very small snippets of sort of trailers. I mean, I really didn't see a whole lot of marketing for it. I'm guessing it's very similar to. I hate to compare it to something like Rocky, but I'm guessing it's similar to The Fighter or Rocky, and sort
it is. She's a former MMA fighter who has a dark past and gave up fighting a long time ago and is now coming back into the ring.
Because she's broke, because
she's broke. She's got a kid now that she is inheriting somewhat because she gave up her child, along with fighting. So now she's fighting for her career as well as fighting for this kid back.
Wow.
And she is an alcoholic, and she's having this huge struggle, and internally and physically, and then she comes back into the ring. So
Gotcha.
Yeah, it's yeah, and I think that's why some critics have like kind of dumped on it. Like, it's gotten mostly good reviews, but some critics have complained about, like, you've compared it to like Rocky or like $1 Million Baby or like something like that. It kind of does go into those shades a bit, but it's not like, I thought, if anything, her performance saves that movie 100%. It's worth it to watch it just to see her physically transform this person and like completely embody the role. I would just recommend it just for that. Like that, I mean, I think that's what makes her pretty good.
she broke 2 ribs.
She did break 2 ribs. She did. And like, that's, I mean, talking about like really going after for your craft. I mean, she, before the movie came out, there was like some talk of her getting Oscar buzz for it, and I don't know if you feel that she might have a chance in that category. It's probably gonna be tougher for the leading ladies this year. There's a lot of folks in the running, but
Who else is in the running for that besides Gaga?
there's like Kristen Stewart is kind of in the running for Spencer.
Nicole
Kristen
Kidman.
Stewart's in the running?
Oh yeah, I know. Everyone always, yeah, she's a good actress, man. Like, she just kind of doesn't always, because of past movies, she kind of gets like shit on a bit. But she's in the running. Nicole Kidman's in the running.
It's all politics.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, like, I don't think, I mean, I would love to see Halle Berry get a nomination for it. I think she's worthy of it, but I really think it's not gonna happen just because the movie didn't get as big of a push as it probably should have. There's not like there is money behind it. I know Netflix is behind it. But I don't think her alone will be enough. Like, I think if the movie had gotten like even better reviews, then maybe they would have pushed for it more. But it'll be one of those things, if she gets one, it'll be like a pleasant surprise if she got a nomination. But as far as like,
I hope she does, actually.
Yeah.
Here. I just think that women just get snubbed. Like, it's much harder competition. It's such a hard process for women, the award season, and it's all about who you know, and it's all about schmoozing. I'm going through award season right now with my work, and it's not about the movie, unfortunately.
No, it's politics. It really is. I thought that was so weird when I first learned that when I was younger. When it's like, you have to campaign for awards. Like, it's not always about like how good you are. It's like, how many asses do you kiss in order to get to?
Why is it like that? Why is it like that? I mean, are there any awards? I mean, I feel like Golden Globes is still kind of that way.
Yeah, the Golden Globes are kind of like that too. Like, they used to get
the SAG Awards, maybe.
Yeah, they used to get a bad rap, the Golden Globes, because it was more about celebrity, right? So like, let's say like Julia Roberts was in like a subpar movie that year. Sometimes they would nominate her just because they want Julia Roberts to show up. And like like the Hollywood Foreign Press was more into like celebrity and like, oh, look who's sitting at the table, and like, oh, look who we got to like come. Like, it's not always about like the talent. And that's kind of true of the Oscars sometimes too. Like, a long time ago when Monique did Precious, even though I think her performance was so strong that she had to win in her category, there was no one else that was going to beat her. But she famously did not play the game. She didn't do any of the Oscar campaigning stuff. And because of that, she got blackballed. Like, she talks about it all the time. Like, after she did Precious, like, she doesn't get, even though she's an Oscar winner, does not get the roles that you would think she would get, because she didn't want to campaign for anything. She didn't want to like, his ass. And she didn't play that game. Like, all these bigger celebrities like Tyler Perry and Lee Daniels and Oprah, they basically told her, like, if you don't play the game, this is what's going to happen. And she didn't want to. And they were like, well, here you go. Now you can't really, now you're not really part of the game. I mean, I guess it's like one of those things. It's like, when you go into it, you kind of know, right? Like, I mean, I assumed you would know, like, this is part of the game. But I think Monique was like, hey, this was a smaller independent movie. There wasn't a lot of money involved. I worked my ass off. It's all there on the screen. Like, why do I have to campaign for an award? I mean, but it's
it's like, why do I have to get on my hands and knees and beg for an award
like
that I clearly deserve?
Yeah, it was especially bad during like the Miramax like Harvey Weinstein days. Like they were known for like bullying people into into getting nominations. Like they were not very subtle about it. They were like,
Yeah.
there's a
I mean,
reason why
Jennifer Lawrence
Shakespeare in
talks
Love.
about it.
Yeah, there's a reason why Shakespeare in Love won Best Picture over something like Saving Private Ryan. It was a Miramax movie, and they bullied themselves into into the position of winning a lot of those awards, and it's unfortunate. It's not always about talent, which is depressing to kind of see sometimes because you want it to be at least. But yeah, I don't know. We'll have to see what happens.
I don't know. Sorry, guys. I don't know if it's just me, but I'm seeing a lot. I'm getting a lot of chop. I am not seeing.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can now.
Okay, cool. All right, they'll be able to fix that.
Well,
I know my internet's like so bad today.
That's all good.
can you guys hear me all right?
Yeah, I can hear you.
I don't know what's going
Yeah.
on. I haven't had good internet.
That's okay. We'll be able to fix it.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
I'm getting cuts and pieces of both of you guys.
Really? Damn. I like turned on my hotspot and it's still not working.
That's better. That's better.
Is it better?
Yeah, Brittany, I can hear you better. Gaius, for that last thing you were saying about the awards, I didn't hear a word of it.
All right. I will just jump. We can just jump into the Gucci 7 and just keep going, if that's cool.
Okay.
All right. I'll let Brittany start it, and then I will piggyback off of it. If you want to.
Start what? Sorry, I didn't hear anything.
Just talk about seeing House of Gucci, and then I'll just like piggyback off that, and then I'll tell them where to like kind of cut that stuff, and then let's.
Oh yeah. Okay.
All right. Perfect. All right. So Brittany, you saw House of Gucci. I also saw it. I have feelings about it. I was really excited for it. I liked it, but I have a lot of feelings. But I'll let you go.
I do too. I'll start with the positive. Lady Gaga killed it. I think she did fantastic. I think that she really owned that role, and I do hope that she wins an award for it. I don't love Ridley Scott, and I think I'm going to make that pretty clear during this critique.
Okay.
I think he's kind of not a nice person to new filmmakers, and I don't like that about him. And I think that his movies are too fucking long, and I think they're choppy because he makes them even longer and then has to cut it down. And you can tell in this movie that he had to cut a lot of stuff out that was probably important to the story. This should have been a series.
Wow.
Yeah.
And then my last point that I want to make is Jared Leto. I never want to see a movie with him in it ever again after this.
Really?
Never. He is dead to me after this. And I'm not even Italian, but he was a laughing stock of the movie, and I didn't appreciate that. And it was rude. They made a caricature out of him. His character had no respect. It was just, I understand he was portraying a real person, but Ridley Scott tried to add humor to this movie by only allowing Jared Leto be the funny character. And I think that's really terrible. If he wants to add humor to the movie, add it in other aspects, not just one person, because when you make it one person, it turns that person into a caricature. And I just didn't like it.
Yeah, I kind of
they were using him as kind of like this is like by caricature, you're like making fun of the whole family through him kind of thing.
A little bit.
He was a mix of Christopher Walken and an Italian. Like the accent he was using.
It was like Mario mixed with like Count Dracula. It was weird. It was
oh my god! Wow.
It was really weird. Like I
tell sometimes if it was him being Christopher Walken.
Yeah, it was weird.
It was not good.
What I couldn't tell was, so I can agree with certain critics that kind of say that it's a movie that it has an identity crisis. It wants to be like a hard hitting like melodrama, but then it also wants to kind of dive into camp a little bit, and they use Jared Leto the most. Like Jared Leto feels like he's in a different movie. Like he does not feel like he's in the same thing with them. It is not like I don't like, and I don't know if that's
100%.
because I don't know that's because Ridley Scott couldn't just keep him in check. Because like Jared Leto said that when he was offered the role, he was like, okay, I'll do this only if I can do whatever I want to do. And clearly they let him do whatever he wanted to do. Now that the person that he's playing was known to be eccentric and kind of like the black sheep of the family. But even like, Tom Ford came out and said stuff against the movie because he said he's a fashion designer for people that don't know, of course. And he's also a film too. And he said that like, that guy in real life, yeah, he was the black sheep and, he was a bit eccentric, but like he was not a caricature. And that's what he felt like he was watching when he watched Jared Leto play him. Like he played him like a joke. And for people
were laughing in the theater. Like I've never heard that kind of like, the movie was so serious and people were laughing at weird scenes with him in it. And it wasn't supposed to be funny. It was just like his mannerisms that people were laughing at. And like, it was cringy.
Yeah.
Damn. He's a notorious tryhard though, isn't he? Like he's
he's like a method.
Jared Leto.
He's like,
he's a weirdo. And so I think that casting him, they kind of knew what they were getting. And so they kind of shot themselves in the foot by just saying that he's going to be a part of the role. Plus they dressed him up to make him look like it. I mean, they could have picked anyone else.
Yeah, I mean, like you can kind of
he looks like Jeffrey Tomlin.
He does a little bit. But, and you can kind of tell the difference between someone who's like playing stereotypes and someone who's playing a caricature, and then someone who's actually trying to like play the person for real. Like Lady Gaga found the right balance of like playing her and actually doing justice to that particular role. Now the Gucci family doesn't like it because they kind of play her up to be, yeah, she was a gold digger, but the movie wants you to kind of feel, and I guess that's the way Gaga took it. Gaga took it as like she was almost a victim. That's how she interpreted the role, and then that's how she interpreted her place in that family. The Gucci family does not feel that way, of course, because of what she did. But I think she had to find some kind of humanity in her, and I think that's why it worked. And why
I didn't feel that way.
Did we lose Brittany?
Well, so I felt differently towards her character in the movie. Okay, so I felt differently towards Lady Gaga's character in the movie, Patricia. Mm-hmm. I felt like she got into the company by marriage, and then she helped manipulate the company so that it would benefit the company and her. And it wasn't necessarily her being a gold digger, but it was her trying to help the company thrive. Because they were doing such a shitty job before she stepped in. Right. And I don't know if that's true or not, but that's how I felt watching it, that they were just like running the ship into the iceberg. And she came in and she was like, this is what you need to do. You got to do this, and this. And she stepped up and really made an impact on that company.
The Gucci family tried to say, and like, I think part of their statement was the movie makes it seem like, there weren't any women at the time in any positions of power in that company. And then they were like, there were like, it wasn't like, people had to, like, women didn't have to fight in order to have power within that company. And they didn't like that the movie kind of portrayed that in a way. I mean, of course, it's dramatized, right? It's not going to be entirely accurate.
Yeah.
And as much as like we want to like kind of, the story is so sensationalized anyway. It's a really, even though it's a true story, it's a really outlandish story in the end. But I think Tom Ford kind of hit it home with like his last statement about why he didn't like it. He was like, it might be this kind of like film about greed and wealth and murder for a lot of people, and some people can be entertained by that. But at the end of the day, these were real people. Someone really died, and it was so like you can make a movie like this and take it seriously and have it be respectful. I don't know, like I wish I could actually talk to Ridley Scott and find out where his direction actually was, because I feel like he was making like totally different movies at different times. Like
that's what I'm saying. I think there was a lot left on the cutting room floor, and I think they were to help further whatever plot he was trying to do. I think there was a lot left to say.
I'm interested though, because it seems like, I mean, obviously the Gucci family had to sign off on this. They had to have some sort of
not
rights about it.
Yeah, I was wondering that too. Can you kind of, Brittany, can you clarify that? Because I thought they would have to sign off on everything that's in it.
So
But
this
they're still
movie was
alive.
based on
Yeah.
this movie was based on a book written about the Gucci family, which was what the script was based on. So they bought the rights to the book.
So
And
the book how they see fit, basically.
yeah, and that's actually how a lot of true crime movies are made. It's based on a book. So if the book is written about you, they can make a movie, just like The Crown.
Right,
The
right.
Crown is able to be made about the royal family. I mean, if you're a public figure in a public domain, it's kind of free.
People are
to
allowed
do
to
whatever
make
you
content
want.
about you.
Yeah, I
Mhm.
mean, I know,
And
I know
they can say it's based on a true story or
inspired.
like actually a true story.
Right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, I know Patricia was she was upset that Lady Gaga never consulted her about playing her. I'm not sure why Lady Gaga never did. Because at the time they started doing this,
Artistic choice.
yeah, I mean, by the time they were doing this, she was already out of prison or jail, whatever, and she could have talked to her, but she chose not to. But I will say this too. I mean, I think in all the interviews I've watched and just even seeing her on screen, like I think she tried to play her with as much respect as she could, given the circumstances. And Lady Gaga actually did not view her as a gold digger or a bad person. Like she viewed her completely differently, and I think that's why she was able to play her with some respect and not turning it into like one walking stereotype. That's why that's the strength of that performance is in the honesty of it. And I think that's why she's able to do that. Jared Leto.
I think like
I don't know. I still don't know.
Jeremy Irons was great. Al Pacino was great. Even Al Pacino's role was somewhat laughable. Also, he played kind of a character as well, but
He had some like Al Pacino moments.
He still did a great job.
Yeah, he had some Al Pacino moments where you're like, oh yeah, that's Al Pacino. So like you respect it because it's Al Pacino. I'll give credit to Adam Driver because Adam Driver is more subdued than the rest of them, but also very good. And I also thought he had really good good rapport with Lady Gaga as well. Like I thought they played off each other really well. I mean, I hope she gets noticed for it. I don't think it's going to get any other notices, unfortunately. I think it's going to come down to her.
She's got that Italian accent down pretty well. I think she did the best one out of all of them.
When they first screened,
that's saying something.
It's saying something. When they first screened this movie for critics, though, like the internet critics, a lot of people were praising Jared Leto, and I was like, now I go back to read that, and I'm like, were you guys watching the same thing? Because it was a joke. Like I was trying so hard. I was like, a director is supposed to keep you in check, man. Be like, yeah, you're going way too over the top. You're like, you got to dial it back. Unless really Scott thought that was really good. I don't know. I just didn't.
There's no way. I'm telling you, I wasn't a huge fan of him before, but
yeah, he's never really been my favorite.
He was so bad.
I shit you not. It felt like he was in a different movie. I thought he was like Tom Ford even said like he couldn't tell if he was watching like actors or when he was on screen if it was just like a bad Saturday Night Live like impersonation of.
No, that's what I was thinking. I was like, am I watching an SNL skit? This is obnoxious.
Wow.
Yeah.
What I'm wondering, it was a packed theater on Saturday night and people were laughing out loud.
I'm wondering though, like when did that change for Jared Leto? Because he was so good in American Psycho and kind of played into the role that was written for him and didn't go off script. Was it after he did Dallas Buyers Club? He was like, I'm going to do whatever the hell I want now.
I don't know if it's him. It could be the director as well. I mean, if there's not a good director keeping you in check, then you're going to go off the rails.
But he was crazy when he got cast for Joker. He did some crazy shit there. Like he just seemed like he kind of went off the rails and has kind of
He's a very method actor.
But if he's a method actor, he's the worst method actor that I've seen because like all the method actors that I know, I mean, Christian Bale or Daniel Day-Lewis, they actually make good films, and I feel like all the stuff that he does that's method is just doesn't work.
Yeah, it doesn't. Like he tries too hard. I feel like he's like, yo, like, if there's like a bunch of makeup, prosthetics, if I can have a weird voice, I'm in. I feel like that's all he wants to do now. Like his last few movies, even the little things where he kind of played like he was like a serial killer a little bit, and like he doesn't play normal stuff, which is fine. You don't have to, but like it's starting to become like shtick that's not even good. Like it's
I don't even know what he acts like in real life. The only time I remember seeing him in real life was when he accepted his Oscar.
Yeah.
Or like maybe some interviews or stuff, but I can't picture him being in a
Didn't
movie
he hitchhike across the US or something?
I don't know. I feel like
he might have.
like
That sounds like something he would do.
I remember hearing that story that he was like hitchhiking across America or something.
I would love to see him in a movie that's like let's just say he was Josh Brolin's role in American Gangster or something. Like I'd love to see him in like a legitimate role that's not some fucked up crazy person, or like that actually looks like him.
Like disappear within this part, like
like just play a role, man. Just be an actor, and you don't have to be an asshole about it.
Well, I mean, I can honestly, just using him as an example. I mean, I know there's going to be other issues like the Gucci family might have with it, and other people that knew them. But if you're just using him as an example of like representing them, then I can understand why they would be upset. On top of the fact that they're dramatizing like a part of their lives. I mean, I know like for us, it's like, oh, it's like a cool true crime story. Like it's interesting, but for them, they were like, we lived through it, and our family kind of didn't recover from it for a while. So it's I can see why they would be upset, especially.
I think the only person I feel bad for in this whole scenario is their daughter, is the Gucci family's daughter, Patricia and Adam Driver's character, their daughter
in the movie. Yeah, they have to relive this. I mean,
she's probably around my age now. She's probably like 30, and just for her to have to like relive all of this stuff right now about her father's murder and like her mom going to jail for it. That's got to be like so hard for her.
Yeah, imagine. I can't even imagine.
Yeah, and like this is like global, and it becomes a bigger global movie because of you have that stacked cast of like extremely famous people in it. It's going to be like an international movie, so it's everywhere. So there's no escaping it.
And then it's going to come around for Oscar season, and it'll be talked about then.
Yep, and of course, I mean, I think every journalist kind of wants to like try to find more members of that family, be like, oh, how accurate is it? Like, did you see it? How do you feel about it? I'm sure everyone's trying to track any one of them down to like get some kind of soundbite from them about it.
Yeah, and or maybe like just journalists are going to try and dive deeper in and say, hey, here's actually some more dirt that you didn't know. What you didn't know about the Gucci family that we now know, and like trying to uncover more fucked up secrets.
Well, good God.
I just think this movie, I know Ridley Scott is like anti-millennial, but I think this would have been a really good miniseries.
Ryan Murphy should have did it. I think someone mentioned it last week. I think that it would have been a good like American crime story, like just like 8 episodes.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think it would have worked better as a show. I mean, you could have actually had more time. Like,
I wanted more Tom Ford.
Yeah,
like there were characters that I when they mentioned Tom Ford the first time, it like I wasn't even thinking about, like, I think I missed it when they first said his name in the movie. Yeah. So like the whole movie after that, I was like, who is this guy? And I like had to find out at the end. I was like, oh, I guess that's Tom Ford. Like it was mentioned once that was his name. It doesn't look like him now, obviously.
Right.
Kind of just skipped over it.
Yeah. Well, I do want to give it. I do want to give the movie some credit where credit's due, because it made like $22 million over the weekend, and adults haven't really been going to the movies that much, especially adult dramas. And it's the best opening for adult drama in like 2 years. So, wow. I mean, at least that's the kind of like power of promotion, right? When you have like people like Lady Gaga and other people like that a part of your project, like people will go see it. Now, what was the one that made the most money before this? I guess 2 years ago, guys. No, I don't even know. I mean, it's been so rough for like adult dramas during the pandemic. Like they haven't been making any money. Like King Richard didn't make any money. Respect about Aretha Franklin didn't make any money. The Many Saints of Newark did really well on HBO Max, but didn't do well in theaters. The Last Duel, Ridley Scott, didn't do well in theaters. So like there's a lot of like in the last year and a half, like adult dramas, because they're a little bit scared to go to the movies because of the pandemic. But this one broke out because it actually was able to appeal to adults and appeal to younger people, just because of I'm gonna give most of the credit to Lady Gaga. I think that's why a lot of people ended up seeing it, and then I would credit maybe the story and then like everything else after that. But I think it was mostly her. I think it was her pull that got most of the butts in the seats for it. Fox,
Yeah.
you were the guy, like Jamie Foxx is kind of like that too, where he can just do everything. And
Justin Timberlake.
yeah, that's a decent one too. Yeah.
I disagree.
I disagree.
You didn't like.
I don't
you
think
didn't like-
Justin Timberlake is Oscar worthy.
Oh, okay, maybe not Oscar worthy, but he can act and sing and dance. I would say that he's a Renaissance man.
He can attempt to act.
Oh.
Oh Jesus. All right, well, should I go into?
So are you saying Friends with Benefits wasn't your favorite movie?
I was
going
gonna say this is coming off of me just watching recently the
oh,
Janet
right.
Jackson documentary. So
Yeah, I mean,
tread
you can talk about
lightly
it
here
for
with
a
Justin
second, because,
Timberlake.
like, Brittany and I also watched that over the break. Like FX, New York Times presents did a documentary. They're the ones that did like the Framing Britney Spears documentary about her conservatorship. So they did one about Janet Jackson and Justin Timberlake and the 2004 Super Bowl, which some people have dubbed Nipplegate. Other people,
I do kind of want to hear, because Owen, you haven't watched it yet, right?
No, I haven't.
So what's your perspective of the issue or of the incident?
Like basically from like your memory, like what you remember like about that whole the whole Super Bowl like event.
Oh, so from my memory, all I know is that basically this whole thing happened, and then it was talked about forever, for a long time about it, and kind of like censorship, and it kind of embarrassed her more than it embarrassed him, and her career kind of went downhill from what I remember, or not necessarily downhill, but it kind of threw a wrench in it. And I remember people were talking about, did he do it on purpose to try and get more notoriety? Did they, I mean, from what I remember was that everyone was talking about it, but people were morally talking about it in the sense of, can you believe that happened, rather than the ramifications of the actual incident itself?
Yeah, she got so before I even watched this, like what I remembered from it, it's very similar to you, but even I think I kind of knew a little bit more just because Janet Jackson is a huge star and like was so back then, like second to Michael Jackson. She was huge in like 80s, 90s, early 2000s. So it was a big get to have her do the Super Bowl halftime show. And what I didn't fully understand is I guess at the time I thought like, okay, like maybe they were both in on like what actually happened, right? And then maybe they both need to apologize because like that didn't go over so well. But then like the narrative I was seeing play out even back then was they were like vilifying her, like making her take the brunt of it. And Justin Timberlake kind of was able to like wise guy his way through it. He said all the right things. He did all like, he apologized to all the right people. And then while her career kind of started to dwindle, he's winning Grammys. His solo career is taking off. Everyone wants to work with him. And that's because like they even mentioned in the documentary, like with the president of CBS at the time where the Super Bowl had aired, he kissed the ring of Les Moonves at the time. It was like, hey, whatever I need to do to like.
He kissed the right asses.
Yeah, and that's what he did. And the documentary actually kind of reveals that in a pretty big way. She didn't really do that. I mean, maybe she should have said things quicker. She probably should have but I think that whole incident was just something that from watching it, I don't think the actual thing itself was planned. Like they were talking about how like she legit looked embarrassed and she walked off crying after it was over. So I don't think necessarily that was supposed to happen. Of course, something was supposed to happen based on the lyric of the song and like the pull away thing, but like I don't think that was supposed to happen.
No, I don't think it was ever planned.
Yeah, and like MTV, it's just crazy. Like there's so many sound bites in it, Owen, and I was more surprised by the sound bites from women in the media who were basically calling her a slut and a trollop and saying to admit that she was a slut and a trollop and a tramp because it was so
for an accident.
It was so crazy how visceral it was. It wasn't just from the men. It was like I was surprised that like the women did that to her. like full on like turned against her.
And what was interesting is they were saying now it's like the thing to do is cheer on women in the media, like Meg the Stallion and Cardi B and all these women that are showing off their bodies. Now it's like appropriate for them to be like, yes, women empowerment. But back then it was women vilifying women. It was like women were against Janet Jackson. It's crazy.
Yeah, it was ridiculous. And like I thought it was completely fucking ironic that like Les Moonves, who was the head of CBS at the time, was demanding apologies from her because like what she did was so indecent. And then you find out years later during the Me Too, I have to say allegedly, I guess, that he like sexually harassed like some of his staff at CBS, among other things. So this guy who wanted an apology from her at the time for like
still denying it.
Still denied it, by the way. He still denied. They actually, I guess, asked him for a quote and he didn't get one. But I thought it was interesting that this guy who ends up getting caught like years later for the stuff that he did wanted a formal apology from her and was pissed off when he didn't get it.
Well, why would they want an apology from her? It was obviously a wardrobe malfunction. Is there something that I'm missing here? I mean, it obviously was an accident, and whatever it was, 50 million Americans saw, or 100 million Americans saw her exposed, but it's obviously was not intentional.
It started a larger conversation about the laws and what protects the media, like with the FCC ruling for what can be said on live television versus what can be, there's fines for even cursing. There wasn't that before. So like this whole, it was called like the Janet Jackson case or something like that. But
they built it around.
Yeah, it was built around this so that now there is a slight delay in live television to censor.
Just in case.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And then,
if you're watching a live television show, like an award show now, you'll see them cut out certain words or things that are happening on live television based on what happened in 2004.
Wow. I did not know that.
Yeah, it was a big deal. And, and it's interesting too, because this was the halftime show that MTV put on. So everyone was CBS was already worried because they were like, well, we want it to be young and hip, but we're also worried about what they're doing. So I had totally forgot that like Nelly performed at that halftime show.
Oh, I remember the whole thing.
I didn't remember them, and Kid Rock. So I didn't even remember that he was there too. And so they were already mad that Kid Rock was like flopping around the American flag on stage. And they said there were some questionable things that Diddy did on stage. And then Nelly did some questionable things. And so
I remember that because my parents have a big Super Bowl party, or had a big one every year growing up. And I remember that was the time when like all the kids were downstairs, all the adults were upstairs. And during the halftime show was when everyone watched it. And I remember watching that live, and like all the kids were sitting right in front of the TV, just staring at the TV.
Like, whoops. But you know what? What's crazy? That happens today, and I don't think it gets the same reaction.
Not at all.
Like what? Not at all. Like whatsoever.
Not unless it was Justin Timberlake who was exposed.
Well, there you go. Totally different thing. Yeah.
I mean, Justin Timberlake just released an apology like this year for his behavior back in 2004, as well as not sticking up for anything about the Britney Spears.
Yeah.
So. And that's 15 years later. Or 10.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say this. I mean, the reaction that I had when I was 8 years old, so I don't really remember everything that happened. My family wasn't huge football fans, so we probably recorded if there was even TiVo back then. I can't even remember.
There was.
If there was TiVo, the little boop, boop, and maybe they skipped through the halftime show, but I'm pretty sure that I heard about it from my friends at school. That's the whole thing that I remember, at least, was hearing about it at school rather than live.
Yeah. It was a big deal. I remember. You almost didn't believe that.
I was 11.
But I also didn't think it was a big deal even back then. But I was like, well, I'm not offended by most things. So I didn't think of the ramifications of it being like a live family event. because I
Yeah.
guess I didn't really view the Super Bowl that way because I'm like I'm watching it with my friends
But the thing is, Case, though, like in that situation though, it's always there was probably I would say probably like 85% of people weren't offended, but the squeaky wheel gets the grease, and so all of those families who were offended immediately phone in. They're like, "How dare you let my children see this? They're not supposed. This should never have happened." And so like they're the ones who are going to be sending in all the complaints.
Yeah.
Whereas I would say the vast majority probably were like, "Oh, that's crazy that happened," but like it's just a body part.
I did love the part where they were talking about like because I guess some of the MTV people, it happened so fast that they didn't even see it. So then the phone starts ringing and they're like, oh, we're thinking we're going to get all this like, congratulations on the great halftime show. And then I get the people at CBS like, what the hell just happened? And they're like, what? And then they watch the playback and they're like, oh, oh, we're in trouble. And then they couldn't find Janet.
Well, they saw Janet run off stage and someone threw a blanket on her or something.
Yeah, she was like,
towel.
And then Justin Timberlake did his best like fucking do-si-do away from me. Like, I didn't know what was gonna happen. And
that was okay. So they played an interview that was like immediately after he got off stage. And I don't know if it was for MTV or what, but he was like talking about it like within 10 minutes of getting off of stage.
Oh yeah, and he made that comment. He made that comment of like, oh, like we always want to get the people talking, like that kind of flipping.
Oh,
he was so weird about it. Like he's
young. He was probably what? How old was he when that happened?
He was in his early 20s, I think.
Yeah, he was probably like, oh, I just want to
definitely milked it. He definitely milked it to his advantage, and he was at the Grammys like 2 weeks later and won a Grammy and like made a speech, like in his speech apologizing again for it. Like Janet Jackson wasn't even allowed to go to the Grammys. Like right. That's how like black and white this was. Like,
oh my God.
Yeah, and it created a deeper conversation about like Justin Timberlake. A lot of people have gotten on him, especially in recent years, about what they feel is him appropriating black culture. So like he's successful because he works with the Neptunes and like Pharrell and Timbaland, and like he's been successful off the backs of like what some people say of all these like African Americans. And then when it came to like kind of like protecting what some would call like at the time, she was like the queen of like pop and R&B at that time. When it came to like kind of defending her and maybe having her back, he did whatever he could to separate himself from it because he was like, I got a solo album coming out. This is what I'm doing. Like I just don't want to be involved. And
I didn't even know he was getting that conversation about him. I mean, people can't deny that he's talented. I mean, I've never thought that he was trying to take away from African American culture and like the beats and everything like that. I mean, he was good friends with Timbaland and Pharrell. Right.
So like
I don't think that's necessarily fair, but I mean, obviously him separating himself is kind of not the right move.
Right. It's only really an issue within black culture. Like, so if you were to talk to especially a lot of black journalists that cover music, that's been the thing for them with Justin Timberlake for like years, is that they felt that like he's talented, and I think
he's like riding the coattails. He's not taking away from them, but he's definitely profited off of black music culture.
Right. And like, and of course, they say it's already hard for, African Americans in the entertainment industry now. It's even harder for a black woman in the entertainment industry. And like that moment was able to kind of take down one of the biggest, like, African American performers at that time. And
wow,
no one was there to like really kind of help her.
He could have had her back.
No one really had her back. And like,
if this incident had happened now, though, like in 2021, there would have been a joint statement. Like they would have gotten together and had a joint statement. They would have been together making every interview together. And there wasn't any of that. It was so like he said, she said, this is what happened. This is what happened. No one really knows what happened.
No actual confirmation. Yeah.
Right. Mm-hmm. And what's happened in like the years since, especially after the Britney documentary came out and like, Janet got mentioned in that briefly, they were able to make the whole like justice for Janet thing trend on Twitter. Like a lot of people were like reevaluating that whole situation and then reevaluating him in particular. And they were like, a lot of her fans, a lot of people that are kind of seeing it for the first time were kind of like, yeah, she really got fucked over, and no one really had her back.
I mean, he was asked back to headline the Super Bowl.
Right.
And
That was
what
another that crazy thing.
and what has
Right,
Janet was able to be honored at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, but only because of this like Justice for Janet movement.
Yeah. And he got
And she thanked her
Wild.
fans in that speech. She knew it was because of her fans that got her to that point where people were finally recognizing her.
Wow, that's unfair.
No, yeah, it really is. I think she's good on it now, and I think some people think in the industry that they've actually have talked to themselves and that they're cool now because it's been so long ago. And this was an unauthorized like documentary that she wasn't involved in it. She does have her own documentary coming out in January where she is going to talk about it a bit.
But it's more about her career.
It's more about her career, and of course that's not the biggest part of her career, right? She was
Of course not.
highly successful before that happened.
Yeah.
But I think even at this point in her life, she's like, I'm over it, and I think I think they're both over it, but I think he's had to deal with, like, hey, like I know like there's some things that you said and did a long time ago. You have to kind of own up to it now because you didn't really own up to it then, and whether or not that's fair, we always talk about the whole like, oh well, he was young and like it was so long ago. Why you have to get retribution for it now? But like that's the way the industry is, especially now. I see like it's everyone's job now to just go back and look at old stuff and be like, remember what you said? Or remember what you did?
Yeah. I mean, I'm not trying to cancel Justin Timberlake. Although I don't think he's a very talented actor. I no reason to cancel him. Have him keep acting and more power to him. But
Great voice actor.
I do think that he did need to come out and make somewhat of a statement on everything that's gone on, and he did, and much respect for him for doing that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
totally agree.
I was going to talk about watching Hawkeye, but I think we can go into that next week because it's only the second episode. I did want to kind of talk about this was news that happened today, and I didn't know that people were trying to make a third Magic Mike. Brittany, you might have been a part of that, but they are making
picketing outside.
They are making a third Magic Mike, and it's called Magic Mike's Last Dance, and Channing Tatum is in it, and Steven Soderbergh is directing it. It's made exclusively for HBO Max, and HBO Max is doing this with a lot of like big IPs, like like Lethal Weapon 5 is going to HBO Max, and I think they want to use these kind of bigger like properties and sequels to kind of promote the streaming service more.
Well, I think they're doing a HBO Max for Magic Mike because cleaning up the theater after watching those movies, it was just way too much of a hassle. They just couldn't. They didn't have enough industrial strength cleaner.
I do have a personal story about Magic Mike 2. I was a production assistant for Magic Mike 2.
Oh,
nice.
How was it?
It was when they were filming in Myrtle Beach, and I was living in Myrtle Beach at the time, and I just applied to be a production assistant for like, I think it was only like 2 or 3, maybe 4 days max. And that's the closest I've ever been to Channing Tatum, and it was great.
So
I was like 20.
I was listening to a podcast, and I think it was the This Is Important, the Workaholics guys, and they were talking about when they've been around people like Channing Tatum or other sort of what are considered like the supremely sexy men of the world, or of at least the USA. And they said that the actual like physical sort of like they get groped like an unbelievable amount, and mostly and almost exclusively by women. And I think that, I know this might be a little bit of a hot take, and because it's obviously not right in any sense, but I just can't imagine like you're just Channing Tatum and you're walking and people are just, I mean, they just kind of come up to you and just all they want to do is touch you because of, and I obviously it sounds, oh my gosh, that could be amazing, but I can't imagine the hassle it might be, and just like the actual sexual assault sort of things that they kind of go through because they just have amazing 6-8 pack abs. I feel like that would be unbearable, and I'm wondering what you guys think about that.
You should hear the women's stories.
No, I'm not. This is what Brittany, I'm trying to say.
I know.
Just a hot take. I'm not trying to condone anything from anyone.
Well,
I'm trying to think about it from the male perspective.
I'm totally kidding.
Because I think that there's obviously the amount of men who get sexually assaulted is far lower, especially in the business.
I'm like, oh, let me just play my small violin for
But you can't take away from that fact. I mean, it's
No, it's bad. But also, I mean, he's known for this role. Magic Mike is like him. It's Channing Tatum.
It is
I didn't personally, I didn't see that much groping, but there were a lot of security in place when I was working on set, maybe for that reason. But I don't condone that behavior for male, female, anyone.
Right. I mean, I was, they talked about when they were making the first one, and this kind of goes into Hustlers too. There's the same thing. They were talking about making the first one. They were doing like the stripping scenes or whatever. They have to hire extras and they were saying that like, we have to make sure that these extras know, like, yes, pretend like you're having fun, act like you're at a strip club, but you have to respect the talent. Like, you can't just like use this as an excuse to like get extra handsy. So like they were talking about that with Magic Mike, it has to look fun, but they also have to know like, hey, like this is still like a rehearsed thing.
It's still a set, it's still professional.
Split hands anywhere. And then like, when they were doing Hustlers with Jennifer Lopez, they said they had the same problem because all the guys they said were respectful, but having to vet all their male extras who are going to be the ones that would like, put money on her, like actually touch her and like, but have to be respectful about doing it.
That must be a hard process.
They was like, they're like, they vetted everyone very carefully.
I mean, and if you're going to be one of those guys that fucks it up all just to touch J-Lo or Channing Tatum or whoever, you won't work again. So you have to make sure that is worth it, because if you're kicked off set, that you're like blacklisted for ever being an extra or ever doing anything in the industry ever again, because that'll be your reputation. So you have to know going in, this is it.
Yeah. You're gonna get close, but that's it. I mean, just enjoy that and enjoy the close proximity.
I'm just wondering what this third one could be about, right? Because like, is it about him? Like, is it like one last stripping ride because he's getting older?
Yeah. How did the second one end? How did the second one end?
It's the same writer and Channing Tatum's attached to it, so it's. I mean,
there was like a whole
potential, I guess.
I remember the second one was more about like.
How did it end?
It was less about the inside of like the strip club and them working there, and like there was like a big competition. I almost felt like I was watching like Pitch Perfect, but with like male strippers. But I don't know if there was more story to tell, but apparently there is.
I mean, do you think there's more to tell for Lethal Weapon 5?
No, of course not. I also have a big age issue with that, and I don't want to sound ageist, but more so for my homie Danny Glover. I don't even know if he can pick up a gun anymore.
I don't think there's any more to tell about Fast and the Furious, and look where we are.
But look at the money though. I mean, that's why. I mean,
well, that's how Magic Mike is. They're gonna make money off of this.
Yeah, there's money to be made off of Channing Tatum's abs.
Yep.
There's money to be made off of men going to see men in cars.
It's true.
Yeah.
By the way, I got so tired of, like, when the first Magic Mike came out, I got so tired of trying to defend, like, it's a good movie. Like, when it first, because everyone was like, oh, why are you going to go see that? I was like, it's Steven Soderbergh. He directed, like, a bunch of great stuff.
Because people like to shit on things that people like. Like, it's so annoying. If you like a movie, you like a movie. And that's just...
Yeah. And honestly, the male stripping
people
part,
shitting on it haven't even seen it.
Yeah, the male stripping part of Magic Mike actually wasn't even I mean, it's in there, but it's not, like, a huge focus of the first movie. It's, like, kind of, like, evenly placed and through a much different kind of story.
It's an underdog story.
It's an underdog.
I liked it.
Yeah.
I thought it was a good movie.
I thought it was good. The sequel, I thought it was kind of unnecessary, but it made money.
It'll make money.
It made money.
It'll make money. That's the point.
That's the point. So as we kind of wrap up here towards the end, since the House of Gucci is a movie based on a true crime, we're just going to give 3 of our movies that are favorites that are based on true crimes, and I actually think that we might have picked some that might be better, I'm assuming, than House of Gucci. I know, Owen, you haven't seen it yet, but I don't know. I think the ones I picked kind of handle these situations a little better and with a little bit more respect, while also trying to still be entertaining in the process. So,
all right, Gaius, kick it off.
Yeah, you go first.
I'll go first. So we actually talked about this movie last week, but for number 3, I actually picked The Bling Ring, which is actually based on the
Oh yeah.
Hollywood Hills robberies, where a group of teenagers would like basically go online and scope out when celebrities weren't going to be at home, and then go to their houses and break in, because these celebrities actually left their keys under the mat or sometimes left their doors unlocked. I don't know how you could be Paris Hilton and like uh, leave your door unlocked or anything like that, but she did.
Right.
But yeah, she got away with that whole group got away with stealing $3 million worth of just money and jewelry and accessories and clothing and a bunch of other stuff. But yeah, I like it. I mean, Sofia Coppola wrote and directed it. I actually thought she did a good job of handling the whole. Some of the complaint about the movie is that there aren't any likable people in it, but it's not about likable people. It's about these kids who are like obsessed with like celebrity culture, and like she wanted to like kind of explore that more than like the robberies themselves. Like what made kids so obsessed with like, because like she said when she did her research that like a lot of these kids didn't even think they were doing anything wrong. They were like, we love Lindsay Lohan, we love Paris Hilton, we want to be like
we want to be like them.
So we stole their stuff, and that was like
they would like go in their house and try on their clothes and
and they like
pretend they were them.
They lived like in their it almost like hey, we're their buddies. They wouldn't care if we got caught.
Also, it's like what they did though is low key genius. I mean, they would basically like, because it just kind of proved how unprivate they were, and people were kind of like, oh, they're untouchable celebrities, so they're obviously going to have like, I would never think about going to their house, but they live basically next door to these people, and so they're like, oh, Paris Hilton's going to be in the Virgin.
That was the crazy thing too, is that these kids weren't like poor. These kids they also had money. They came from like, most of them came from families that had money, so that's how you could tell it wasn't really about like they have something I don't. It was like, I just want to be like them. I mean, the fact that they got away with it for so long. Oddly enough, the house that they broke into that got them noticed was Audrina Patridge's house from the Hills, and then they got too greedy and started stealing like really expensive things from like, I think they took like a big painting from Orlando Bloom's house and like Rolexes from his house and what he shared with Miranda Kerr. They just got a little greedy and they didn't know when to stop, I guess. But yeah, I thought Sofia Coppola did a good job with it. I think that movie actually deserves more credit than it gets for kind of depicting that part of like, the being obsessed with like celebrity culture like that.
I agree.
That's a good pick.
Yeah, and then number 2, I went with Bully. It came out in 2001. It's Brad Renfro and Michael Pitt and Nick Stahl. It's actually based on a story that took place in Florida. Nick Stahl's character is best friends with Brad Renfro's character, and he constantly bullies him. Like, they have like a weird kind of almost homoerotic relationship where like he emasculates him and like, but is also like, oh, you're my best friend, you're this and you're that. And then Brad Renfro gets a girlfriend, and the girlfriend's like, I don't like the way he treats you. And then they pull their other friends in to actually like murder Nick Stahl's character. And there's a whole, I mean, it's Larry Clark directed it, and he's the guy who directed Kids. I don't know if you ever heard of that movie, but Larry Clark is like known for making these like really adult dramas involving teenagers that are pretty uncompromising, and he's gotten accused of showing too much when it comes to stuff like that, because he actually hires a lot of people who are of age, but they don't necessarily look age appropriate. And there's like a lot of issues with that too. But it can't be denied that it helps with the realism of whatever the story he's trying to sell. And it's a dark movie, but it's really well done if you have a chance to see it. I thought it was pretty good. And
I haven't seen it yet. I want to see it.
And then the first one I did Alpha Dog. The story in Alpha Dog is like a big story in like the valley, like San Fernando Valley. Basically a guy like a kid's older brother owed this one guy drug money, and I think it was like $2,500, and he didn't pay him. So they see the guy's little brother just walking down the street, and they like kidnap him. And as the story goes, like the kid doesn't really feel like he's in danger because they let him party with them, and he never feels like he's actually gonna get hurt. But of course they find out like, oh, like, well, what can happen if they find out that we're holding this kid for ransom, and they're like, you can go to prison for this long. So their
Justin Timberlake is in it.
Justin Timberlake, I was like waiting to bring it up because Justin Timberlake is actually really good in Alpha Dog. Anton Yelchin, who like passed away a few years ago, is the kid. And actually Justin Timberlake and him have a very strong rapport in that movie, because Justin Timberlake's the one bad kid in the movie that actually kind of feels bad about what they're doing.
Yeah.
Has an opportunity to save him. I mean, and of course, if you know the true story, that doesn't happen, but it's just really well done. And like, yeah, I think it's kind of like one of those movies, if you're gonna do a movie like that, if you're gonna show kids having like partying and having a good time, like there's no consequences, then you need to eventually show the consequences of living that kind of lifestyle. Like I think an hour and 20 minutes of that at the start it's like one big party until it's not. Like when things go awry, they go awry in a big way.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of how it would play. It probably played in real life too, where it's like, oh, this is not fun anymore. This is not a joke anymore. And it's handled really well. I was like, when we brought up Justin Timberlake, I was like, well, I'm going to give him credit later because he was really good in Alpha Dog.
I'll give it a shot. I'll watch it. And
Yeah, we'll have to check it out. All right, Brittany, what are yours?
all right, I got I need to pull up my list. Sorry. Okay, I'll start with number 3. I put Goodfellas. I was worried you guys were gonna put Goodfellas, so I have a couple extra, but Goodfellas is one of my favorite movies of all time. That's probably no surprise to anyone who knows me and knows that I'm a film buff. Anyone who's a film buff loves that movie. It's based on Henry Hill and his story, and I just think it's so well done. It's a long movie also, but I really like the Italian mobster type movies. So that one really takes the cake.
Yeah, it's good. It's hard to beat.
Yeah, it's really good. And then my number 2, I don't know if this really is considered a true crime, but it was the first movie I thought of when I was making this list. Aaron Brockovich.
We can tell there's some crime in that.
Yeah, I think she was fighting
Yeah.
crime in it. I think the story is fascinating. Julia Roberts won Best Actress for it. Especially because it's based on a real person who is still fighting for justice now. I mean, she takes on cases and she's just a badass person. Even though the lawyer in it is like in the news lately because he's Erica Jane's husband.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So that's like a whole thing that we won't get into, but like, did Erica know? But yeah, he's like the lawyer. That's the real lawyer from that movie. It's like her husband.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then my number 1 is Catch Me If You Can.
Amazing.
I don't even know how I didn't think of that.
It's so good.
One of my favorite movies of all time.
Me too. And I actually saw Frank Abagnale Jr. speak. He came to my college and spoke. And he made this comment about how he only uses credit cards. He doesn't use debit cards because he's spending other people's money. And it's so fascinating how his brain works, where he's like, if someone steals my credit card, the credit card company is 100% liable and they'll give me the money back. But once you become vulnerable and spend your own money on your own debit card, then that's when you're vulnerable to that money. And I don't know why, but I always think about that.
Oh yeah,
that's crazy.
Like that was my freshman year of college. I saw this speech and I've always thought about that. But yeah, I think that story's really good. Steven Spielberg directed it. Used a lot of his own personal touches in it. The absent father thing.
Probably one of my performances too, I think.
Yeah, it's so good. It's such a good movie. So that's my top one.
Makes me want to see Tom Hanks and Leo in another movie together.
Yeah, they were good together. They played off each other really well. I
also really like when movies like start 2/3 the way in. I forgot what it's called. There's a name for it, but when they start like 2/3 the way in, the opening scene,
Yeah.
and then they start over, and then you
Oh,
kind of get to that 2/3 scene,
And then
and then you see the rest of the movie.
Yeah.
That's like my favorite way of filmmaking for some reason. I'm really interested in that.
Yeah.
So they do a really good job in that
By the way,
movie.
that movie proves like people like Christopher Walken, when you can subdue them and actually like make them like just act and just be normal. Because he's actually very good in that movie. Like he's not in it a ton, but like his scenes with Leonardo DiCaprio are super strong, and that's just because like you said, we talked about that earlier about reeling people in. Like they were able to do that with Christopher Walken. Christopher Walken can be over the top because he's Christopher Walken, but like him subduing that, like that's like one of my favorite performances by him. He's so good in that too.
I think it just proves, I mean, the way that I love Christopher Walken's role in that is just because without that upbringing, Frank Abagnale never would have been who he was. Like he literally grew up watching his father in not really a malicious way kind of lie and get what he wanted.
Right.
Which it's kind of all very unintentionally bad. It was just kind of like, hey, like if I can sweet talk my way into getting something, then I can kind of get whatever I want. And Frank saw that and he's like, you know what, if I do that and all I do is play the part, then everyone's going to believe who I am.
Yeah.
Which is just, I love that. I love, without
if you pretend you're a pilot, then you're a pilot.
Yeah, exactly.
You have to convince your own self that you are that, and then you just are.
Yeah, exactly. Gotcha. Well, I'm actually
for yourself.
I'm happy, guys, because I didn't pick any of the movies that you guys picked either. So I think we did a good job. I have 3 of my own.
For the day that we come across, like if we all have the same number one, we just fight.
Yeah, I'm a little upset I didn't pick Catch Me If You Can. That is one of my favorite movies of all time. But I'm gonna go on. My number 3 was Logan Lucky. I really like that movie. I think it's just a fun take on sort of, I mean, it was one of the heist movies. I know we talked about heist movies a couple episodes ago, but like that was one that since it was the real story, it was just like, it wasn't the typical kind of thing.
Yeah.
And my favorite line from that was, be prepared when shit hits the fan. And then like one of their other rules was be prepared for when shit hits the fan again, because it's never just going to happen once. You obviously know something more is going to happen. I also loved seeing Daniel Craig in a role that is not typical of him, playing a very like a Southern convict, which was super cool to see. Also, Adam Driver is amazing. He's one of my favorites, and I think it also showed Channing Tatum's ability to act around some pretty big stars, which was pretty cool to see. My number 2, I would probably say, is American Animals.
That's cool.
I really liked that one because it had a really cool documentary feel to it. Brittany, if you haven't seen it, it's a really good movie. It's on Hulu. It's about.
I have seen it. It's really good.
I loved it.
I watched it after you told me to watch it. I think that was one of the movies you suggested to me like a long time ago.
Yeah, no, I thought that it was like, I haven't seen a movie like that in a long time, and I don't think I've seen one since. They put the real people in there who did the crime. Basically, for everyone listening right now, it's about a story of these kids it's college, right? I think they're in college, and basically they go out to steal this very, very rare old American book. That's basically the first drawn and artist sketches of a lot of the animals across the US, from birds to mammals and anything like that. But I think the book, they said, was worth like $350,000, and it's just sitting in a library in a case. And so they're like, you know what, that sounds like something easy to steal. And I think it's just a really well done story, and the actors who were in it kind of went on to go do a lot of better things, and I've been in a lot of other things that I've liked. So I thought that it was a really good story, and so definitely for true crime, that was one of my favorite ones. And then number 1, I'd probably have to say, gosh, it was really hard for me to decide this one. Casino was going to be my first choice because it's just, I mean, it basically is Goodfellas, but in a different kind of sense. And really just love everything that De Niro does in that time period of his life. I think that's one of the great movies, but I think my number 1 probably is going to be Spotlight. I think that movie was just like so well done. And I mean, everyone makes Catholic jokes, but until I saw that movie, I really didn't know the extent of it. I had kind of like everyone kind of knows the whole history of what happened with the Catholic Church, especially in Boston.
Yeah.
But that movie for me, just when it got exposed and how hard it was for them to even expose it because of how massive this machine is of Catholicism. Basically, they didn't really care. And so
I had no idea about any of that before seeing that movie.
Yeah.
I had no idea about, I mean, I'm Jewish. I don't spend much time in the Catholic Church, but I had no idea about any of that.
But you've heard like priest jokes, right? Like growing up.
Yeah. I mean, I just didn't realize the extent of how big it actually was.
Yeah, I mean, I'd always heard priest jokes, but I was like, oh, yeah, it's funny. Like, I guess altar boys got molested, and like that happened. But until I really thought, and like the thing that really got me was the end scene when one of the reporters is like walking down and he sees the house because he sees one of the guys who lives across the street from him, and that's one that's been gone to a few different parishes, and so he literally puts a note on the refrigerator because he has young kids. Says, do not go to this house. Do not talk to people in this house, which was just absolutely mind blowing to me. And I mean, anything that Michael Keaton's in is something that I will definitely watch. So those are my top.
The scene in that movie that gets me, it's like I don't even know if it was the intention of the scene. It's when Rachel McAdams is trying to interview that guy, and I forgot exactly what I don't know if he had been with the church or whatever. He's older, and she's interviewing him. She's like taking a statement, and he like kind of like almost flippantly admits to like touching like little boys, and it isn't really regretful about it, and like he just kind of just says it.
Grow up or something.
And then, he kind of downplays it like it's nothing, and then the way she kind of looks, like she's so like devastated by what she's hearing, like she can't believe that he's just so like oh yeah, well, this is nothing. Like it. That I mean that got to me because her reaction to it. And I'm assuming that's how a lot of those those guys like justified what they were doing at the time. Like, this is not a big deal because of X, Y, and Z. But like, always like that whole movie is really good. Like every time like we start doing these lists, I'm always like upset because I forget about some of these movies.
I almost put Zodiac as well for one of them.
I don't know why I didn't do that. Like true crime.
Honorable mention.
Honorable mention Zodiac for sure.
Yeah.
That's the scene in that movie when he hog ties that couple up
during the day.
That one still fucking chills, dude. Like
day. Like it's so weird to have a scene like that play during the day, and I know that's how it happened in real life, but like that scene is crazy. Ugh.
That scene gives me goosebumps and the hair on the back of my neck stands up.
Yeah.
Crazy. Damn, I need to watch a true crime movie tonight, guys.
I know I think that's my favorite genre of movie. True crime based on a true story type.
My fault for thinking true crime only been murder. I should have thought about Spotlight and stuff. I was like, no, murder. No, I went murder and stealing stuff. That's where I
do think the Versace thing the series was really good. If that's
if I was gonna pick a TV show, that was really well done too.
Wait, you went theft, murder. Brittany, you went. What did you do? A lot of murder too? Was yours?
No, I just went like crime with like intense backstories. I guess
mafia crime,
mob crime.
Yeah.
Erin Brockovich isn't a mobster, but she could.
And then I went theft, molestation.
You all went pretty deep on ours.
I do want to end this on a good note though. I watched Tick Tick Boom, which we talked about last week already, but I just wanted to say I think it was one of the best movies I've seen this year. And I made my mom watch it and my mom loved it. She's been raving about it on Facebook.
Amazing.
And I do hope that Andrew Garfield wins some sort of award for it because he really pushed his acting chops in that movie. And I mean, I want to watch it again right now. It was so good.
I told you, Brittany, when you said you watched it, I watched it again with my family. It's just so good. Like I said, I think the Oscar is like it's his or Will Smith's. I mean, as much as this is hard too because they're both so good in their movies, and like I guess I want to see Will Smith take it, but like I feel like Andrew Garfield, like I said, is just acting his fucking heart out in this movie. Like he's so good.
Yeah.
Like and he does that guy proud too. Like, that's the best part of the best thing I can say. is that he like
Yeah.
really gave it his all, 110%. And it's. I mean, I didn't know he had any background. I don't know if he had a background in singing or doing all that stuff, but he handled it very well. But
I
yeah,
agree.
that's a good note to end on. Like, I want to.
Great. Glad that we convinced you to watch it, Brittany.
I know.
Yeah. Vanessa Hudgens didn't have a very big role, so
She didn't.
So
But she has a great voice too, though. That one, I didn't really like. I kind of forget about that.
if it's
No.
a real voice, I don't know.
I mean, she's a Disney star, so she's always had.
She was a High School Musical alum. Come on, Brittany.
that sneakers song that she has.
Oh, Sneaker Night. I remember that song. It's a banger.
That is a banger.
It was a banger. Before I'm gonna have Owen kind of wrap us up and do the send off and everything, but I do want to say I've gotten a lot of messages from like playlists, and then also looking at the ratings on Apple Podcasts, and I've gotten messages on G Reels. I know Owen has gotten some messages on his Instagram, and I just want to encourage everyone. Actually, say thank you first for giving us positive feedback, and it's always always appreciated. But also constructive criticism is also good too. So if there's something that's working, not working, we would love to hear it because we just want to make it as good as we can. But we do appreciate the positive reviews so far, and we still have 5 stars on Apple Podcasts, so that's also pretty good.
Yeah, thank you guys for everything that thanks for listening. We are a playlist original. I mean, Brittany and Gase and I are having a lot of fun doing this, so it's great to hear the feedback from you guys. We're on Spotify, Apple Music, Apple Podcasts, anywhere you can find podcasts. You can find us on YouTube as well if you want to see our faces and see us laughing. My cat makes a cameo. Brittany's dog makes a few cameos as well. So
I'll adopt a dog.
We enjoy doing this for you guys, and we enjoy talking about movies. So thank you everyone for listening, and it's been a great 4 episodes so far. So we're looking forward to making more.
Yay.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you so much.
Awesome.